Welcome to the English Matura with JB podcast. Today, we're exploring global back-to-school traditions while mastering essential English vocabulary and idioms. Join us as we discover how different cultures hit this universal reset button. We are joined in the studio by two expert guests who will be leading today's session. I'll hand it over to them.
You know, there's a very specific scent that hits you this time of year. A mix of fresh pencil shavings, brand new sneakers, and that slightly crisp morning air. Even if you've been out of school for decades, that back-to-school feeling never really leaves you, does it?
It's a universal reset button. For students, especially high schoolers at your level, it's this strange blend of mixed emotions. You might feel a bit sad that the long, warm summer is breaking up, but there's also that genuine buzz of seeing your mates again. It's like a happy new year, just happens in September instead of January.
I love that perspective. It really is a fresh start. But if you're learning English, this season isn't just about buying new notebooks. It's about mastering a whole new set of tools, specifically the vocabulary and idioms we use to describe this transition. If you've ever felt like you're drawing a blank when trying to describe your school day in English, you're definitely not alone.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We aren't just looking at a list of words. We're exploring how the return to school shapes your life and how different cultures around the world mark this milestone. From the way students in Japan take ownership of their space to the high-energy traditions in New Zealand, the back-to-school experience is a window into global values.
It's fascinating how a simple routine can mean something so different depending on where you are. We're going to help you navigate those conversations, whether you're talking about your timetable or trying to explain a complex project to a teacher.
By the end of this, you'll have the phrases to talk about your studies with confidence and the cultural insights to see your classroom as part of a much bigger world. So, let's start by looking at the nuts and bolts of the school day and how to talk about getting back into the swing of things.
Before we get into the deep cultural stuff, we should probably make sure you've got the right kit. And I don't just mean your pens and pencils. In English, we have very specific ways of talking about the different stages of education, and it can get a bit confusing because the UK and the US don't always use the same terms.
That's a great point. If you're in the UK, you might start in nursery and then move to primary school around age 5. But in the US, that's elementary school, and the very first year is called kindergarten. It's a small distinction, but it matters when you're telling someone about your background.
And then there's the big transition to secondary school in the UK, which usually happens around age 11. In the States, they often split that up into middle school or junior high before you finally hit high school. For most of you listening, you're likely in that high school or secondary school phase where things start getting a bit more serious.
Right. This is the time when you aren't just attending classes, you're enrolling in specific courses, and maybe even dropping a class if it turns out you're not enjoying it. It's also the time when you start hearing words like assignment and essay much more often.
I remember that feeling of a checklist getting longer and longer. You're checking off the essentials, shoes, trousers, shirts, but also the academic necessities like copybooks and an assortment of pens. It's all part of the runaround to get ready for the first day.
And once you're actually there, the language changes again. You're not just doing work, you're taking notes while the teacher speaks, handing in your assignments on time, and giving presentations to the class. It's a lot to manage, but having the right verbs makes it much easier to describe.
It really does. It's the difference between saying, I did a paper, and I wrote an essay on the history of the ancient Egyptians. One sounds a bit vague, while the other shows you've really got a handle on your B1 level vocabulary. But what happens when the work gets really tough? That's when the idioms come in handy.
Idioms are like the secret sauce of English. They make you sound much more natural, but they can be tricky because you can't always guess the meaning from the individual words. Take hitting the books, for example. It doesn't mean you're actually punching your textbook. It just means you're starting to study really hard.
I think many of us have had to hit the books before a big exam, and if you do it well, you might pass with flying colors, which means you didn't just pass, you did exceptionally well. It's a great phrase to use when you want to celebrate a big win.
But what about when you're struggling? Maybe you're racking your brain to remember a specific fact during a test, but you're drawing a blank. We've all been there. That moment where your mind just goes empty, even though you know the answer is in there somewhere.
Racking your brain is such a vivid image. It really captures that feeling of mental effort. Another good one for when you need to think deeply is putting your thinking cap on. Teachers love saying that when they want the class to solve a difficult problem or brainstorm new ideas together.
And if you're the type of person who stays up late reading or always has a book in your hand, people might call you a bookworm. It's usually a compliment, though it depends on who's saying it. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the class clown, the student who's always making jokes and maybe distracting everyone else.
Every class has one. And then there's the teacher's pet, the student who's always the first to answer and maybe stays behind to help the teacher. It's interesting how these terms describe the social roles we all recognize, no matter what country we're in.
They really do. And using these phrases correctly shows you understand the old-fashioned way of talking about education. But school isn't just about the words we use. It's about the traditions that shape our days. Let's take a look at how different cultures handle this back-to-school transition.
One of the most striking things about looking at schools globally is how they teach values through simple daily routines. In Japan, for instance, there's a tradition called osoji. Instead of having a separate cleaning staff do everything, the students themselves clean their classrooms and corridors every day.
It's such a powerful way to teach discipline and teamwork. When you're the one responsible for keeping your environment clean, you take ownership of it. It reflects that wider Japanese value of harmony and collective responsibility, making sure public spaces work for everyone.
Imagine if we did that here. It would certainly change the atmosphere. It's about more than just a clean floor. It's about realizing that you're part of a community. You see a similar focus on community identity in Mexico, but through a very different ritual, the weekly flag ceremony.
Right, every Monday, schools across Mexico gather to salute the national flag and sing the national anthem. It's a moment of patriotism and civic duty, making the school a central hub for the community. It's a formal way of saying we are all part of something bigger than ourselves.
It's interesting how these traditions help students develop a sense of collective identity. Whether it's through cleaning or a ceremony, the message is that you aren't just an individual student, you're a citizen.
And that's exactly why these traditions matter. They aren't just rules. They're reflections of what a society values most. While Japan focuses on harmony and Mexico on national pride, other cultures use the school day to focus on the inner self.
That's a perfect lead-in to what's happening in places like India, where the morning routine is all about balance. It's quite a contrast to the running around we often associate with the start of a school day.
In India, many school days begin with a morning assembly that includes yoga or meditation sessions, alongside prayers and speeches. The goal here is to promote mental, spiritual, and physical well-being before the academic work even begins. It sets a positive tone for the whole environment.
I think we could all use a bit of that. It's a reflection of India's ancient spiritual practices being used to nurture the mind and body in a modern setting. It's about being mindful before you hit the books.
It really highlights the idea that you can't learn effectively if you're stressed or scattered. And speaking of a different kind of balance, have you seen how the French handle their lunch breaks? They take their food culture very seriously, even in schools.
Oh, the 2-hour lunch break. It's legendary. It's not just a quick sandwich at your desk. Students have a nutritious, multi-course meal and plenty of time to socialize and relax. It reflects that French value of work-life balance and the importance of social dining.
It's such a contrast to the stuffing in a quick snack that happens in many other places. In France, enjoying food is a foundational part of the culture, and the school system respects that by giving students the time to fully rest their minds.
It's a great lesson in savoring the moment, whether it's through meditation in India or a long meal in France. These traditions show that school isn't just about getting through the curriculum, it's about how you live your life during those hours.
Exactly. And while some traditions focus on the here and now, others are about remembering the past and honoring a country's complex heritage. That's where things get really meaningful, especially when we look at places like Canada or New Zealand.
In New Zealand, many schools have integrated Indigenous culture in a very visible way through the pohiri, a traditional Maori welcome ceremony. It involves formal speeches, songs, and sometimes even a haka. It's a way of honoring Maori customs and showing a commitment to the country's rich heritage.
It's beautiful because it's about hospitality and care for others, which are central Maori principles. By bringing these rituals into the school, they're teaching students to value diversity and become global citizens from a very young age.
And then you have traditions that are more about acknowledging history, even the difficult parts. In Canada, every September 30th is Orange Shirt Day. Students and teachers wear orange shirts to remember the Indigenous children who were sent to residential schools.
That's a very powerful example of truth and reconciliation. It's not just a celebration, it's a conversation about historical injustices. It teaches students the importance of inclusivity and making sure everyone's story is told.
It's a reminder that schools are microcosms of society. The things we choose to celebrate or remember tell us a lot about what we want our future to look like. Even something as simple as what you wear can be a statement of pride.
Like Friday Wear in Ghana. About 20 years ago, the government launched an initiative to encourage people to wear traditional, locally made fabrics on Fridays. Many schools took it up, so now you see students and teachers in these vibrant indigenous textiles. It's all about cultural pride and supporting local craftsmanship.
It's amazing how these traditions, whether they're centuries old like the Scholltüte in Germany or more recent like Friday Wear, all serve to make the school experience feel exciting and positive. They mark the milestones of childhood in a way that sticks with you.
You mentioned the Scholltüte in Germany. That's one of my favorites. When children start their very first day of first grade, they get this huge, colorful cone filled with school supplies, small toys, and sweets. It's a rite of passage that's been around for centuries.
I've seen photos of those. They're nearly as big as the kids. It's such a clever way to make the transition less scary. Even during really difficult times in history, parents would still try to give their children a Scholltüte, even if they could only fill it with potatoes. It shows how much they value that milestone.
It really puts that faint hope of finding clothes that still fit into perspective, doesn't it? The effort parents put into these transitions, whether it's a gift or just rummaging through old clothes to find a sibling's hand-me-downs, is a universal part of the back-to-school experience.
We talk about passing down clothes or discarding the ones that are too small, but it's really about the passage of time. You're growing, you're changing, and your school traditions are there to help you navigate that change.
And as you grow, you start to pick up old habits again, the good ones, hopefully. You get into the groove of your studies and start catching up with the friends you haven't seen all summer. It's that rhythm of life that school provides.
It's interesting how we use those phrasal verbs, getting into the groove, getting down to, work, picking up where we left off. They all suggest a sense of movement and return. You're not just standing still, you're moving forward into a new year of possibilities.
So, how do you take all of this, the vocabulary, the idioms, the cultural insights, and actually use it in your own life? Let's look at some practical steps for making this school year your best one yet, linguistically speaking.
If you want to make the grade this year, the first step is to get organized with your language. Don't just wait for the teacher to give you a book list. Create your own personal checklist of English goals. Maybe it's mastering 5 new idioms a week, or taking notes entirely in English during one of your classes.
That's a fantastic drill. And when you're in class, try to avoid being a copycat. Instead of just writing down what's on the board, try to brainstorm your own examples for new vocabulary. If you're learning the word enroll, don't just write the definition. Write about a course you would love to enroll in.
Another great tip is to crack a book early. Don't wait until you have a big exam to start revising. If you study abroad in your mind by reading about these global traditions, you're already building that global outlook that schools are trying to foster.
And don't be afraid to make a schoolboy error. That's a great idiom for a simple mistake that even someone who should know better might make. The important thing is that you learn your lesson and keep going. Every mistake is just a chance to improve your skills.
I also think it's worth trying to bring some of these global traditions into your own routine. Could you spend 5 minutes cleaning your workspace like they do in Japan? Or maybe take a few minutes for mindfulness before you start your homework like they do in India?
Those small habits can make a huge difference in your well-being and how you get on with your studies. The goal is to make learning feel like an integrated part of your life, not just something you do because you have to.
Exactly. You want to be that eager beaver, someone who's enthusiastic and ready to take on new challenges. Whether you're giving a presentation or doing research for a history project, do it with that sense of cultural pride we saw in Ghana.
And remember, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but luckily, you're not an old dog. You're at a point in your life where your brain is incredibly flexible. This is the perfect time to learn things by heart and build a foundation that will last a lifetime.
As we bring this to a close, it's worth stepping back and looking at your own school experience. We've talked about traditions from Japan to Canada, and we've racked our brains for the best idioms to describe them. But what about your school?
That's the question I want to leave you with. Think about the traditions in your own classroom. What do they say about your culture's values? Are there routines you pick up every year without even thinking about them?
And building on that, which of the traditions we discussed today would you want to adopt? Would you like a 2-hour lunch break, like in France, or maybe a morning meditation, like in India? Thinking about these things helps you move from just learning a language to truly understanding the world it describes.
You've got all the tools now, the assortment of pens, the checklists, and a whole new set of idioms to pass your exams with flying colors. The back-to-school season is a chance to renew old friendships and start getting down to your goals with a fresh perspective.
It's been a real pleasure exploring this with you. I hope you feel a bit more prepared to make the grade and handle whatever this new school year throws your way.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the global classroom. We hope you feel inspired to see your own school journey as part of a much larger, more colorful story. Take a moment today to reflect on one new tradition or phrase you want to make your own. Happy learning!